veio de longe da Inglaterra. Ele dirige a estratégia de evolução da Ashoka para desencadear uma mudança fundamental na experiência da educação, de modo que cada jovem se torne um agente de mudança. E ele é muito inspirador. Então vem para cá, Ross, please. Hello.
Okay. Good luck.
Thank you. Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Isabella. Now, she was right when you must pay attention. It's very important. No, I don't need that. Thank you very much. So, thank you very much. I'm going to start in classic English fashion with an apology. Desculpa, não falo portuguese. And that's all I have, so don't, please forgive me. And thank you very much for listening in English. Thank you very much to Rui for inviting me to talk today. I'm going to tell you a bit of a story that begins in 1980, when the founder of Ashoka, Bill Drayton, American guy, was in India, and he kept meeting these amazing people with really innovative solutions to very complex human and environmental problems. People who are being extremely entrepreneurial in the way in which they were trying to apply these solutions and changing systems. And Bill, as a result of this experience, invented the term social entrepreneur for this kind of person. He then created the organization Ashoka, and Ashoka has gone on to become the world's pioneer of the field of social entrepreneurship globally. We now have something like 3,600 fellows, some of the world's leading social entrepreneurs, including a couple of Nobel Prize winners and people like Jimmy Wales, who invented Wikipedia, but also thousands of other people that you will never heard of doing some amazing, amazing work. Now, the classic narrative that surrounds social entrepreneurship is that of the heroic social entrepreneur, the heroic individual who's fighting against the odds to make the world a better place and succeeding, at least in part. Well, while that narrative, which is very Hollywood and very appealing in many ways, it nevertheless tells a lie, because the work of the most successful social entrepreneurs is always collaborative. And the narrative now is shifting very quickly from this heroic individual narrative to one of collaborative impact, collective impact. People who are creating ecosystems for change. That was Ashoka. What Ashoka is now focused on is the idea that everyone must become a change maker. A change maker is somebody who is by nature empathic, is collaborating and leading the way to make change, solving complex problems at any scale, in their family, in their school, in their community, in the wider world. It's not about scale, it's about attitude and skill. And our belief now is that we've reached a point in human history where it is imperative that everybody is given the opportunity to become a change maker. What's interesting when you look at the Ashoka Fellowship is that most of the successful fellows are by nature empowering the people they work with as change makers, empowering whole communities to make their own lives better, to take charge of their own well-being, and to contribute to their collective well-being. So it's implicit in the work of these leading social entrepreneurs to work with communities and empower others. The reason that we think this is now urgent for everybody and should not just be the domain of social entrepreneurs is that we've reached a moment in history which demands this. We live in a world which, for many, many people, and far too many people, a world that is defined by poverty and hunger, inequity, exclusion, extremism, violence, migration, slavery, unemployment, anxiety, depression, resource depletion, pollution, climate change, species extinction, perhaps even our own extinction, maybe not. This is a world in which our problems are becoming increasingly complex. We can't rely on other people to solve these problems. We can't rely on traditional routines to solve these problems. These problems are everyone's problems and need to be the responsibility of everyone. In other words, everyone needs to collaborate to address these problems. The other thing to think about in the modern world is not only the problems that exist, but the nature of life within which these problems exist. The fact that we now live in times of unprecedented and accelerating volatility and uncertainty and complexity and ambiguity and hyperconnectivity. We live in a world now where humans, by virtue of a massive explosion in the population of humans, plus an explosion in urbanization and explosions in social media, humans are living more closely together than we've ever done before. We're bumping up against people of difference more than we've ever done. We need people to empathize with each other. We need to collaborate with each other in order to solve our problems, which are now entirely interrelated. We live in times of unprecedented interconnectedness as a species. If you look at this from a more economic perspective, we live in an era which, for many people, they're calling it the fourth industrial revolution. It's an era in which AI and automation is taking over. It's an era in which organizations are moving from centralized control and command structures to decentralized, shape-shifting organizations, where in order for an organization to thrive in this chaotic and complex world, we can't rely on centralized or hierarchical decision-making alone. Decision-making and leadership needs to be pushed to the edges of organizations in order that that organization can shape its very nature in response to a rapidly changing world. So again, if you want to thrive and even survive in this new way of organizing, in other words, if you want to make good decisions at the edges of an organization and take leadership, you need to become empowered to collaborate and to make positive change. So all of this points to a desperate urgency for everybody to become more of a collaborative and empathic change maker. But what does that mean for young people? Well, this means that we need to focus on young people in schools and outside of schools, developing the skills of collaboration and of empathy and of leadership and of making positive change. How do young people develop these skills? Well, we know that they don't only develop in schools. So yes, we need schools and teachers in schools to focus on the development of these kinds of skill. But we also need schools to themselves start collaborating with people who are working outside of schools. So not only are we seeing now a trend towards the development of collaboration and change-making in young people, but we're also seeing a trend towards the education system itself becoming more collaborative. And we can see this around the world. There's some very interesting projects that we're involved with. And I can point immediately at citywide projects in Medellin, in New Delhi, in Aragon, in north central Massachusetts, in St. Petersburg, in Russia, for example, where we have whole cities who are saying we need to completely transform the very focus of education in our city. We need to transform the city so that every young person in that city has the opportunity to become a collaborative and empathic change maker. What this means is we need teachers collaborating with each other. We need teachers collaborating with non-formal educators and with parents. We need all of these actors collaborating with health professionals and social workers and religious leaders in many places. So anyone who is directly affecting the experience of young people needs to collaborate in order to empower every young person to collaborate and make the world a better place. But it's not only those people operating at the front line of education that need to collaborate. We also need the policymakers and the teaching unions and the teacher training institutions and media organizations and technologists and funders and businesses, etc. Those people who are still influential on the empowerment of young people, but are somewhat removed from the direct experience, the second line influencers, we call them. We need those at the front line to form teams. We need people on the second line to form teams. And we need those teams to connect into teams of teams. And when you start getting multiple teams connecting as if they're cells in an organism, we call this the creation of a learning ecosystem. And what we're now advocating and working very closely and hard on around the world is the creation of empowering learning ecosystems, where you have whole communities and whole cities working together with the shared North Star of empowering every young person in that community to make positive change as a change maker. They're all working to collaborate in teams of teams. And thirdly, each of those teams is working to effect systemic impact. They're all taking long-term view and holistic view of what is needed, so that they're creating methods, mechanisms, and shifting mindsets in order that everyone in that community, in that learning ecosystem, can become a change maker. My own personal belief is that there is nothing more urgent than this. I think we are facing very, very serious and severe ramifications if we don't get organized. And my appeal to you would be to please think very hard about this work that you are starting in Portugal. I think there is a fantastic opportunity to do something that can not only transform life here in Portugal, but can set the example that we need to make change everywhere. Thank you very much.
Ross, hello. Come here. You are not running. You are a really good speaker.
Oh,
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Eu falei que ele era inspirador, hein, gente? Acertei? Quem achou? Obrigada, também achei. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, we have one question now for the audience. A gente abre para uma pergunta agora. Não precisa todo mundo levantar a mão, só um. Vai. Quem vai ser a pessoa perguntadora desse momento? 1, 2, 3 e... Gente, olha só, todo mundo pode ser um change maker em qualquer área. Ross disse isso. Pode ter tanta coisa que vai emergir daí, né, Constança? Você não tem uma pergunta? Não. Tem. Vamos chegar ao microfone lá. Não sejam tímidos, gente.
Hi, Ross.
Hi, Ross.
Can you define what is a changemaker in
Yeah.
Ashoka's view?
Great.
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's an Americanized term that I don't always like. I'm going to admit that up front. Or rather, I prefer it when it's used as a verb. I sometimes think the noun changemaker is a little bit exclusive and a little bit binary. But I do like the verb change-making, because what that denotes is somebody who is both equipped and inclined to make a positive, thoughtful, empathic contribution beyond their own personal gain. So this certainly involves a person looking after their own well-being, but equally, this person recognizes that their own well-being is inextricably entwined with the well-being of everyone. So someone who is change-making is aware that they are in the world and that their actions are affecting the world, and that how that world responds to their actions will reflect back on themselves. So, and this is very closely linked to the idea of Ubuntu, of course, Hui, this idea that we are in the world together. And so the idea of change-making then is in many ways a way of being in the world. And I often talk about how we should recast the idea of learning to the idea of becoming. What I mean by that is that if change-making involves being empathic, being thoughtful, being system-minded, being open-minded, being growth-minded, probably being resilient sometimes, certainly being creative, being the kind of person who is trying to change the world for the better, to become that person, we need to focus on becoming. So, in other words, helping young people and each other become more empathic,
Yes.
become more creative, etc. So, what we don't have is a dictionary definition of this, but it's more of an idea that we're trying to share with the world, and the invitation is for people to help find their own definitions. And what I would say is that our experience in collaboration, which we know is extremely difficult, our experience is many of the best collaborations come when there are no hard rules or no hard definitions, but where there are questions and ideas that form the basis of deep conversation and deep reflection. And when we get into deep conversation and deep reflection, what we often find is our egos start to soften up and dissipate. And if you can start to soften up your ego in a group, that creates space for other people to step into that circle, and we think that is the basis of collaboration.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I go?
Yeah.